All right, hi everyone. So, what can you tell me about Native Americans? No, no, we're not going to be doing that. That is not appropriate.
I need a chicken wing. Chicken.
No,
They
ma'am,
used
we do
to
not do
live in
that. They used to live in what?
teepees.
Yes, they did.
They have feathers.
Some of them have feathers. Now, not all Native Americans have feathers. Now, what about Navajo Indians? Have you ever heard of a.
Eat turkeys.
So, yes, you have heard of Navajo Indians. Okay. Well, now, we have been reviewing about Navajo Indians, and if you remember, we just went on a field trip where we learned about Navajo Indians and we got to see their hogans where they.
Navajo Indian.
Excuse me, we're not talking while I'm talking. Thank you. Right. Now, if you can remember, there are children and families just like we have today, or there have always been children and families and grandparents, and this is really important to the Navajos. Now, children were cared for by their parents and extended families. Almost all the local adults took part in raising and disciplining children. Some had special roles in children's lives. For example, the adult who made a baby laugh for the first time held a ceremony to celebrate the event. Miss Michaela, I'm going to need you to sit back up. Which represented prosperity, generosity, and good health. At the ceremony, people prayed that joy would always remain with the baby. Can you imagine that? If you got to make a baby laugh, all of a sudden,
Mega baby.
make a baby laugh. Is a difference. All right. But a Navajo child was known by many names during his or her lifetime. Parents gave every baby a sacred name as a source of power. The power was weakened each time the name was said aloud, so people did not use it every day. Instead, they referred to one another in terms of their relationship, such as son of my sister. Children also became known by names that described what they look like or their important accomplishments. So they could describe you as that girl that went to college, or not college, that girl that's in third grade, or my son. But they don't say your name because they think that your name has power, which I think is really cool. Do we do anything like that here in America?
Mm.
No, well, do you do anything like that?
Nickname.
Oh, we do have nicknames.
My name is Michaela.
Your nickname's Michaela?
I don't have a nickname.
Okay. All
I
right.
do. Everyone calls me Grace, but my name is Haley.
That's not a nickname. Your name is Grace.
That is a nickname because her first name is Haley. All right. Now, we do have, like we said, teepees that Indians used to live in, but what Navajo used to live in was called a hogan. Hogans are also called hugans. They were the most common Navajo dwellings. These low clay covered homes stayed warm in winter and cool in the summer. Most families had hogans in more than one location, and they moved from one to another once or twice each year. Today, many Navajo people lived in modern homes but have hogans nearby, in which they hold traditional ceremonies. So now that we're becoming more advanced, the Navajo Indians also become more advanced. So they still own hogans for their ceremonies, but they don't live in their hogans anymore. So most families did have other buildings near their hogans. They stored extra belongings in dugouts and worked under the shade of ramadas, or open-sided structures made of 4 poles and a thatched roof. Sweat lodges were low, airtight structures that were warmed with heated rocks. When the lodges grew hot, people sat inside and sweated to bathe themselves. Sweat baths were accompanied by rituals and songs. Can you imagine that? You bathe yourself by sweating.
That's nasty. They stink.
Well, it doesn't mean they stink, but it probably doesn't smell too good in there. Now, Navajos grow crops. The Navajo people raise crops of maize, which is also known as corn, as well as beans, squash, fruits, and such as peaches. Now, if you remember, the corn that they use is not the kind of corn that we're used to seeing. We're used to seeing yellow and white corn, but their corn was red and orange and blue, and they had a lot of blue corn. Harvest from these crops helps round out a diet of meat and wild plants. Most Navajo farmers were flood farmers. They planted their crops in areas that were flooded by rainfall or overflowing rivers. They could farm only during the summer months when flood came. Now, do you think that sounds very smart to only plant where there's going to be floods?
You got a lot of water.
Well, you do have a lot of water, and it's great to have water, but if you get flooded, things can die, and you don't want your plants to die. But the Navajo Indians also respected their land so much more than other people do, especially nowadays. So the Navajo depended on the land for their survival and worked hard to keep a balance between themselves and the plants and animals on which they relied. Hunters did not overhunt or kill more animals than they needed for their survival. They did not hunt certain creatures, including coyotes, snakes, eagles, because they believed these animals were sacred. Now, can someone tell me what I just said? What animals were sacred?
Rabbits.
Rabbits are not sacred, no. They killed and ate rabbits. So coyotes, snakes, and eagles. You're going to need to remember that in a second here.
Do I need to write this stuff down?
Well, if you remember, I gave you a worksheet.
I don't know where it's at. I don't have good memory.
Well, we'll just have to keep on moving on, and you'll have to figure that out later. So,
I can't.
The Navajo people were weavers even before Spaniards brought sheep to the Southwest. They used fibers from wild plants such as fox cotton and yucca to create blankets, mats, and cloth. Can you imagine that? They're making their clothes out of plants. All right. Depending on its size, a single blanket could take up to 200 hours to weave. The intricate patterns and the many colors used to make different blankets meant that weavers had to spend a great deal of time planning their designs and preparing wool. Designs came from each weaver's imagination. Early blankets were made with off-white, gray, or brown wool that was taken from the light and dark-colored sheep in the flock. Before long, however, weavers began to dye the fibers. They used plants such as pinyon trees and rabbitweed to make dyes of different shades. Weavers also traded for a Spaniard fabric called bayeta, a soft red cloth which they used to unravel in order to use its richly colored thread. Okay, now can someone tell me what has always been the foundation of the Navajo community? This was said at the very, very beginning.
Family.
Family, that's perfect. Thank you, Grace. All right, so the Navajo usually lived close to one another in seasonal what? In seasonal homes. So the Navajo usually lived close to one another in seasonal homes. The Navajo moved from a winter settlement to a summer settlement. That means that when it was hot, they were in a more cooler area, probably near the mountains. And then when it got colder, they moved away from the mountains, actually, so they can keep their body temperature regulated and not freeze to death or not get too hot. The families worked together to provide for the whole camp. So all families were meant to provide for the whole camp, as in some people hunted, some people gathered, some people made clothes, and some people helped raise the children. So children were cared for by their parents and extended family. And what were the most common Navajo dwellings?
I have bad memory.
It's not a teepee. It starts with an H.
Hut.
Hogan. Hogans were the most common Navajo dwelling. Yes. So can someone tell me what crops the Navajos raised? One of them's blue.
Corn.
Oh, yay! That's a good one. So,
That was blue.
what animals didn't they hunt?
Coyotes.
Coyote.
Good. What's
Rabbit.
did hunt rabbits and they ate the rabbits. So snakes and eagles are very important to them as well. And that's because they were sacred. Now, I'm going to place you all into different groups. There are going to be 4 groups, or I guess there will be 3 groups. What you'll be doing is you're going to be creating a quilt. Now, you're not going to be weaving the quilt, but instead you're going to be drawing what you want your quilt to look like. But here's the catch. You're going to have to use one of these symbols these symbols that I'm about to give you to incorporate into your quilt. Now, Native Americans, especially the Navajos, what they used were zigzag patterns and diamonds. So I want to see you using a lot of zigzag patterns and diamonds. Group 1 will be using an animal. So they can use a coyote, a snake, or an eagle in their drawing. Group 2 will be drawing a hogan. So you'll be doing a hogan with maybe diamonds all around it or diamonds inside the hogan. And then group 3 will be using one of the crops, so probably corn would be best. And group 3 will be using corn to make their weaving design. And then I want you to put this all on a piece of paper. And not only this, but I want you to tell me, why did you choose this design? Why did you do zigzags? And why did you do diamonds? Or if you did another design, why did you do that design? And then I want you to tell me why you chose that particular image. So why you chose a hogan, an animal, or the piece of corn. All right, and everyone can get started. Thank you.